In the winter of 1834, the streets of Frankfurt were covered with snow, and silence ruled the night. The great Rothschild mansion stood at the edge of the city, tall, cold, and surrounded by mystery. To the world, the Rothschilds were the most powerful banking family in Europe, but behind those stone walls, something strange had been happening for years, something that even money couldn't hide. The story begins with Dr. Wilhelm Strauss, a young physician hired by the family to care for Baron Nathaniel Rothschild's newborn son. From the outside, the child looked normal: pale skin, bright eyes, and a quiet face. But within weeks, the doctor noticed something disturbing. The baby never cried, not even once. His eyes followed every movement like a predator watching its prey. Dr. Strauss tried to speak to the Baron about it, but the family dismissed his concerns. "Doctor," the Baron said, "our bloodline is blessed, not cursed. Focus on keeping him healthy." But late at night, Wilhelm heard strange noises from the west wing of the mansion, the part no servants were allowed to enter. Once, he saw two men carrying something wrapped in a dark cloth down to the cellar. He never saw those men again. Months passed. The boy grew fast, much faster than a normal child. At only 1 year old, he could already walk and speak small words in perfect sentences. His intelligence was beyond anything the doctor had seen, but with that brilliance came darkness. The boy would stare at people for minutes without blinking. Servants began quitting without notice. Some said they saw the child whispering to himself in old languages that no one understood. By 1836, rumors started spreading across Frankfurt. People whispered that the Rothschilds were protecting something, or someone, unnatural. Every few months, a new servant would go missing, and their names were erased from the records. When one maid, Anna Muller, tried to run away, her body was found days later in the river. Her eyes had turned completely black. Dr. Strauss became obsessed. He wanted answers. Why did the family keep blood samples locked in the cellar? Why were scientists from Vienna secretly visiting at night? One evening, he decided to find out. When the mansion fell silent, Wilhelm took a candle and slipped into the forbidden west wing. He followed the sound of humming machines and the faint smell of chemicals. Behind a heavy iron door, he found what he had feared: a secret laboratory. Shelves filled with glass jars, each containing something floating inside: small organs, twisted tissue, and even a few preserved fetuses. And there, at the center of the room, stood a tall glass tank filled with a green liquid. Inside floated another child, perfectly still, perfectly formed, but with glowing red eyes that seemed alive even in sleep. Suddenly he heard footsteps behind him. It was Baron Nathaniel, his face calm but his voice filled with warning. "You shouldn't have come here, Doctor," the Baron whispered. "You've seen too much." Strauss tried to speak, but before he could, 2 guards appeared and struck him unconscious. When he woke up, he was tied to a chair in the same laboratory. The Baron stood beside the glowing tank, watching the child float in silence. "You are a man of science, Doctor," he said softly. "Then you must understand. Our family's power is not only in gold or banks. It's in blood. We have protected this secret for generations, a gift that began hundreds of years ago, and must continue." The Baron leaned closer. "Our ancestors found a way to keep the mind sharp and the body strong. But every gift comes with a cost. Some children are born perfect. Others, like this one, must sleep until their time comes." Dr. Strauss was horrified. "This is not science," he said. "This is madness." The Baron smiled. "Madness builds empires, Doctor, and history only remembers those who survive." That night, the doctor escaped, or at least he tried. Guards searched every road leading out of Frankfurt, but Wilhelm had already vanished. Some say he fled to England. Others claim he was found months later, half mad, writing symbols on the walls of an asylum. the same symbols he had seen carved in the Rothschild laboratory. Decades later, in 1872, a hidden diary was found in an old London bookstore signed Dr. Wilhelm Strauss. The pages described everything: the experiment, the family, and a mysterious gene passed from generation to generation, something he called the blood of silence. According to him, it allowed the family to preserve intelligence beyond human limits. But it came with a dark side. Those born with the full version of the gene lost all empathy. They could not feel fear, sadness, or guilt. The diary ended with a final line: "If they ever perfect it, the world will not be ruled by kings or governments, but by something far colder." No one knows what happened to the doctor after that, but people still whisper that the Rothschilds continued their research in secret. Some say the experiments moved to Paris during the 1900s. Others claim the last surviving test subjects were hidden under a private estate in Austria. What no one could deny was this: every generation of the family seemed untouched by time. They aged slower. Their eyes stayed bright. Their power never faded. And then, in 1910, during a private dinner in London, an old butler who had served the family for 40 years whispered something to a guest before he disappeared the next morning. His last words were written in a single note found on his bed: "The child never died. He still lives beneath the mansion." More than a century had passed since Dr. Wilhelm Strauss disappeared. The world had changed: new wars, new governments, new power. But the Rothschild name still stood like a shadow over history, silent, powerful, untouchable. In 2023, a young investigative journalist named Clara Weiss began researching old European family secrets for her upcoming book, Bloodlines of Power. Her research took her across Paris, Vienna, and finally to Frankfurt, where she found a strange record. A medical report from 1834, signed by a name she didn't recognize: Dr. Wilhelm Strauss. At first, she thought it was nothing, but the more she read, the stranger it became. The report mentioned a genetic experiment, blood samples, and something called Project Silence. The last line froze her completely. "Subject sleeps beneath the family estate. Do not wake him." Clara couldn't ignore it. She needed to know the truth. The old Rothschild mansion still stood at the edge of the city, abandoned for decades. Locals called it the sleeping house. No one dared to go near it after sunset. They said strange lights glowed from its basement windows and dogs howled whenever they passed by. But Clara was not afraid. With her camera, flashlight, and a small voice recorder, she entered through the broken gate one cold evening. The air was heavy, filled with dust and silence. Every step she took echoed through the empty halls. The walls were covered in old portraits of family members, faces too calm, eyes too sharp. Some paintings were scratched out, as if someone wanted to erase them from memory. In the main study, Clara found something unusual: a large portrait of Baron Nathaniel Rothschild. Behind the frame, she discovered a small keyhole carved into the wall. She pressed her ear to it and heard the faint sound of humming machines. Her heart raced. The mansion was supposed to have no power. After hours of searching, Clara found a hidden door behind an old bookshelf. She forced it open and a cold wind blew out, carrying a smell of metal and chemicals. A staircase led down into darkness. Every step she took made the air colder. At the bottom, she saw a long hallway lined with steel doors, each marked with strange symbols, the same ones that Dr. Strauss had drawn in his diary. Her flashlight flickered, but she kept walking until she reached the final door. It had no handle, only a metal panel with a glowing light. Beside it lay a rusted nameplate: Project Silence. Do not enter. Clara's hands trembled. She pressed her camera's red button and began recording. Inside the chamber, the air was thick and still. Large machines surrounded a glass tank filled with pale green fluid. Inside that tank floated something, or someone, A young man's body, perfectly preserved. His skin pale, his eyes closed. He looked no older than 20. And beside the tank stood a modern computer system, still running. The monitor displayed a message. Vital signs stable. Status dormant. Next activation, 31st October 2025. Clara gasped. That date was only 2 days away. She stepped closer, reading through files on the computer. Each document was marked Confidential, Rothschild Genetics Division. They mentioned something called Bloodline Sequence 01. According to the notes, the subject in the tank had been alive for over 180 years, preserved through genetic regeneration. The words were clear. Subject is immune to aging, illness, and emotion. Project continues under private funding. Suddenly, the machines around her began to hum louder. The green light inside the tank turned red. Clara froze. A voice echoed through the speakers, calm, robotic, and male. Unauthorized access detected. Security protocol activated. The glass started to crack. The figure inside opened his eyes. They glowed bright red. Clara stumbled backward, her flashlight falling to the floor. The tank shattered, spilling green fluid across the room. The man stepped out, his skin pale, his expression blank. He looked around, confused, but calm. Clara whispered, Who are you?" He turned toward her slowly. His voice was soft, emotionless. "I am what they created. I am what they feared." She backed away, trying to run, but the door behind her slammed shut automatically. The man tilted his head, studying her face like a scientist observing an insect. "You have their blood," he said. "You should not have come." Clara shook her head. "I'm just a reporter. I don't know what you're talking about." He stepped closer. "It's already inside you. The moment you entered this place, it began." Clara didn't understand, until she saw her own reflection in the glass. Her eyes were slowly turning a deep shade of red. Days later, the Frankfurt Times reported that Clara Weiss had gone missing. Her car was found near the old Rothschild estate, but there was no sign of her camera or notes. Police sealed off the area, calling it a chemical hazard zone. However, 2 weeks later, a strange email was sent to her editor. It had no subject line, only an attached video. The footage showed the basement of the Rothschild mansion. The camera shook violently, but one frame was clear: the broken tank, the machine still running, and a figure standing in the shadows. When the frame zoomed in, the figure turned toward the camera. It was Clara, but her eyes glowed red. The video ended with a single text overlay. "The bloodline continues." In the following months, new rumors spread online. Anonymous reports claimed a private biotech company, Rothschild Industries, quietly purchased the entire estate. Construction crews were seen entering and leaving at night, removing crates marked Biohazard Level 5. No news channel dared to investigate. No government made a statement. But one thing was certain. The Rothschilds were no longer just a family. They had become something else. Something that could not die, could not feel, and could not be stopped. And on 31st October 2025, the date written in the computer's log, witnesses reported strange electrical surges across the city of Frankfurt. Power outages, flickering lights, and a low hum that seemed to come from underground. When technicians checked the power grid, they found nothing unusual, except one short signal transmission sent at 11:59 p.m. It contained only 3 words: subject, activated, phase 2. It was midnight in Frankfurt. A storm raged above the city, and the power kept flickering on and off. Inside a small apartment near the train station, a group of journalists watched Clara Weiss's last video over and over again. No one could believe what they were seeing. Her glowing red eyes, the shattered glass tank, and that final message: the bloodline continues. One of them, a man named Daniel Kurtz, had worked with Clara before she disappeared. He was quiet, serious, and known for chasing impossible stories. Now he wanted to finish what she started. He spent weeks tracing every detail Clara had left behind. Old family trees, genetic records, and secret funding trails all pointed to one thing: a company named Rothschild Industries, registered in Switzerland, but controlled from the shadows. No address, no website, just an encrypted contact code known only to private investors. Daniel pretended to be one of them. Using a fake identity, he contacted the company and was invited to a research facility located deep under the Alps. The message said only one sentence: "Blood is the future. We are ready for Phase 2. 2 nights later, Daniel arrived in Switzerland. The facility was hidden beneath an abandoned observatory. When he entered, he found himself in a silent corridor made of white glass and metal. Everything looked clean, modern, and completely lifeless. A woman in a white coat greeted him without emotion. Her eyes were strange, almost too bright, too calm. "Welcome, Mr. Kurtz," she said. "We've been expecting you." She led him through long hallways filled with machines and cold light. Behind glass walls, Daniel saw scientists working on tubes of blood, samples of tissue, and strange silver capsules marked with the letters BS01. "What does BS mean?" he asked. The woman smiled faintly. "Blood of silence," she said. "Our founder's discovery." Daniel felt a chill run through him, the same name Dr. Strauss had written in his diary almost 2 centuries ago. The woman guided him to a large, circular room with a glass dome ceiling. At the center stood a tall man in a black suit. His skin was pale, his movements slow but precise. When he turned around, Daniel recognized the face instantly, the same man from Clara's video, the one who had come out of the tank. "Welcome," the man said softly. "You're late." Daniel couldn't speak for a moment. The air felt heavy, almost frozen. "You're supposed to be dead," he whispered. The man smiled slightly. "Death is for those who waste time. I have learned not to." He stepped closer, his red eyes glowing faintly. "Clara came here too. She understood the truth. She joined us." Daniel shook his head. "That's impossible. She wouldn't—" Before he could finish, a door opened behind him. Clara walked in. She looked the same, but her expression was empty, her voice soft and slow. "Daniel," she said, "don't fight it. It's peace. It's freedom." He stared at her, heart pounding. "What have they done to you?" The pale man placed a hand on Clara's shoulder. "We perfected the bloodline. No pain, no fear, no weakness. Humanity's next step. You should be honored to witness it." Daniel tried to record everything on his hidden camera, but the red light blinked and died. Every signal, every piece of tech in the room stopped working. "Technology fails," the man said. "Blood does not." Suddenly, alarms started ringing through the facility. One of the scientists shouted, "Phase 2 is spreading too fast." The man turned sharply. "Contain it!" But it was too late. Across the lab, the silver capsules began to shake. One by one, they burst open, releasing thin streams of red mist. The mist moved like smoke, but pulsed like it was alive. Wherever it touched human skin, veins glowed crimson and eyes turned red. Daniel covered his mouth and tried to run, but the mist surrounded him. He pushed through the corridor, coughing, stumbling. All around him, scientists screamed, and then fell silent as their bodies changed. Their faces became blank, their movements mechanical. He finally reached an exit tunnel and slammed the emergency door behind him. He collapsed outside on the cold ground, gasping for air. His camera was broken, but his audio recorder had survived. In his trembling voice, he whispered into it, "They're not human anymore. It's spreading. It's alive. Tell the world before it's too late." Then the sound of footsteps echoed behind him. He turned slowly. Clara stood in the doorway, her red eyes glowing in the dark. "Daniel," she said quietly. "You can't stop evolution." The recorder fell from his hand. The tape ended with his scream and a loud static noise. Weeks later, Swiss authorities sealed off the entire mountain, calling it a toxic gas leak. No news channel covered the event. The company Rothschild Industries was erased from every database. But strange things began happening across Europe. People reported small nosebleeds that wouldn't stop, dizziness, and voices whispering in their heads at night. Hospitals said it was just stress. Governments said nothing. But in a small lab in London, a young intern studying DNA samples noticed something odd in a new blood test. The cells were changing shape, glowing faintly under the microscope. She checked the patient's name. It read Daniel Kurtz. She froze when she looked closer. The cells moved, almost as if they were watching her. That night, the power in her lab went out. When the lights came back, her workstation was empty. Only a note remained on the desk, written in red ink. "The bloodline is awake. No one knows where it began or where it will end. Some say the experiment continues under new names and faces. Others believe it's already part of humanity, sleeping inside millions, waiting for the right signal to activate again. And somewhere, deep beneath the Swiss Alps, machines hum quietly in the dark. A red light blinks once, then twice. A voice echoes through the empty halls, the same calm, emotionless voice from centuries ago. Phase 3, initiate. Then silence.